You know that feeling when someone shows up for you just when you need it most? That's what Uber is all about. Not just a ride or dinner at your door. It's how Uber helps you show up for the moments that matter. Because showing up can turn a tough day around or make a good one even better. Whatever it is, big or small, Uber is on the way. So you can be on yours. Uber, on our way.
Now we are joined, I said earlier, Larry Kudlow, that we have the econ icons. And so you, of course, are an econ icon as well. So
I said econ icon.
I did.
You said icon.
On the Kudlow show. This is the More Money show. I love this.
So we were having a fascinating conversation. You were late to the game, but no, I appreciate your being here, Larry Kudlow. He's the fourth Beatle. And so Steve Forbes' proposition is that a good monetary policy would stabilize the price of gold, and Arthur was kind of challenging him on some of that. Where do you follow?
Not challenging. You ask him specifics.
How it would work.
What was the challenge? I want to hear that.
How would you do it right now? What would you tell the New York office for intervention? How would you go about doing it? He said he'd take it between 29 and 31.
Yeah, cool.
All right, there and there. If it hit 31, what he'd do is he'd sell bonds in the market and take money out, monetary base out of the system.
Right.
If it were 29, he'd buy bonds and do it there. I said, but does it matter your starting point? Because if you have the starting, it was just a technical.
The answer is no.
Well, it would.
You would, wait a second. You argued this years ago.
I did.
You argued exactly what he's saying.
I agree.
You said, let interest rates go, use the monetary base, which is the balance sheet of the Fed, buying and selling treasury bonds, etc. Set up, look at.
All right.
I don't think the height, what he's saying is, from here, let's stabilize this.
But I think that's a problem, because if you knew the dollar were going to be as good as gold for the future, like what's your policy? Steve Forbes is going to be in there for the next 100 years, and it's going to be stable. The value of gold would fall sharply. Because what you want to do is, once you make a dollar as good as gold, no one's going to want to hold gold. They're going to want to hold dollars, and so you have to have an anticipatory period where you announce ahead of time that you're going to stabilize it 3 months from now at whatever price it is that day. That's the way you have to do that.
By the way, you could sneak up on it by selling gold.
Well, that's why I was talking.
No, by selling gold-backed bonds.
So I have a question for you guys. So I don't want to get too much in the weeds.
Sell a 100-year gold-backed U.S. Treasury.
That's the Judy Shelton idea, right?
Well,
a lot of people got
it used to be the Kudlow idea. Actually, it was the Trump idea. Trump loved that idea.
Okay.
He loved that idea.
Right.
He still does, by the way. He still does.
If you let me just ask you a technical question. If we have the Steve Forbes model and you hold gold at, say, $3,200 an ounce, whatever that price is, isn't that over time going to be a deflationary because of...
Of course not.
No, because
it's like saying...
productivity improves.
It's like saying 60 minutes an hour is going to be deflationary.
Okay.
Money is a measure of value. That's all it is.
Okay.
And the idea that the
Okay.
gold standard is deflationary is one of those myths that stand in the way of a return to a gold standard. Where you get deflation is when you overvalue the currency, which the Brits did after World War I.
And when you raise taxes on a fixed gold thing and you cause people to panic and go into gold, that's when you can do it like the Great Depression.
Go back to Mundell. Go back to Mundell's.
My Ouija board's out, Larry.
Seriously, go back to Mundell, who was a very smart guy.
Robert Mundell won a Nobel Prize in economics.
He did indeed. He was a friend.
It was the Laffer-Mundell theory.
Which was created, essentially synthesized by Winiski, a difficult person but a smart journalist. Okay. So Mundell's argument in several of his books is, if you're worried about inflation, that's a monetary issue.
Right.
And by the way, Mundell would agree with Steve Forbes about some kind of gold backing. If you're worried about growth, that's a fiscal problem.
And regulatory.
But the trouble was the Keynesians, remember Mundell's fighting uphill, he's working in the IMF in the 1960s, etc. Keynesian said spend more, deficits more.
Right.
Mundell said no, fiscal policy should be about taxes, okay? And you want to cut taxes for growth, and you want to stabilize the dollar with some kind of gold backing. That's what he said. It's a thin book. What's the name? It had a red...
It's called Man in Economics?
No.
Or the Monetary Theory?
I think it was Monetary Theory. Yeah. Monetary Theory. It had a red...
Yeah, that's the one.
The book.
Yeah.
And I remember reading it. I admit the calculus was over my head, but you didn't need it. The text was so brilliant, and I've never forgotten that. Inflation is about money. Growth is about fiscal, which should mean taxes.
I'm sitting here with Steve Forbes, Larry Kudlow, and Arthur Laffer. So another question I wanted to ask you all, maybe I'll start with you, Larry, is the Keynesians, you mentioned them. They say DOGE and cutting government spending is a bad thing for the economy. So what is your response to that?
It's a fabulous thing for the economy. I mean, it's just, of course the Keynesians have to say that. We just had 4 years of the Keynesian experiment,
Right.
as though we needed one. Look, spending as a share of GDP today is about still 24%.
Government spending.
Government spending.
Right.
Actually, federal spending.
Federal, right.
It's about 24%. That's where Biden left it. The 50-year average is actually 20%. Okay, if you take it down from 24 to 20%, you are going to unlock all this money that can be put to work in the private sector. That's what's going to happen.
That's liberating. So, that did happen in recent history.
But you want to hear a simple.
Yeah.
I mean, which would you prefer? Giving people checks who don't work, or cutting tax rates on people who do work?
I'll take the latter.
Thank you. I think that's pretty clear. That's exactly what we're saying.
Here's another phony argument.
Yeah.
Reducing the federal workforce is going to lead to a recession.
Unemployment.
If that's what they
Alan
say.
Blinder said that
Yes,
in the Wall
that's
Street
right.
Journal.
He did.
today.
So stupid.
What we're talking about, this is so interesting. You have roughly 160 million civilian labor force, and roughly 160 million Americans are working. This reductions in force, is what, 35,000, 40,000?
It could even be 100,000, but that's tiny.
It isn't going to be.
You know?
I mean, it's a rounding error. You're not going to be able to find it. You will
I
find
would like to fire 100,000.
You will find it in the Washington, D.C. area.
Yes, that's true.
But these are basically well-educated people.
And plus, we're recession-proof.
There is nothing.
Right.
There is nothing wrong. I mean, you cannot argue that a smaller government, a more efficient government,
good for the economy.
That's right. And
So we have
But you know the greatest indicator of prosperity is housing prices in D.C. are falling.
Yes. Well, no, wait a minute. I own a house in D.C.
How about
my case.
How about Calorama?
So let me give you guys a historical.
It's the fanciest part. Mnuchin's still trying to sell his house.
So after
that was a joke.
Okay, I got it.
The Keynesians, right at the end of World War II, said we're going to have a Great Depression.
Right.
And we actually put 10 million federal workers out of jobs because these were the soldiers who came back from World War II. And guess what? They found jobs in the private sector. And actually, there was not much of an increase.
Be careful. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
There was a downturn in GDP, but private GDP went up almost
Yeah, but that's all that matters.
In the real world, the economy was doing well.
Yeah, but don't you think killing people does well? That's war. It makes you prosperous.
The same can be said
Krugman
of
does.
Warren Harding. And the Harding-Coolidge administration did the same thing, and everybody expected a depression, and they were completely wrong. They lowered spending
and tax
all
rates.
right? They cut federal workforce, but they did something else, Arthur.
Cut taxes.
Slashed tax rates.
They went from 77% in 1918.
You were
down
there,
to
right?
25% down there. We ran budget.
By the mid-20s.
Yes, and we ran budget surpluses for 11 straight years. 11 straight years the government ran surpluses.
So
and the price level fell.
And Coolidge was the only president under his presidency where the budget was so lower than when he became president.
Who was that?
Coolidge.
That's amazing.
Yep.
11 straight years of surplus.
Yeah.
But I wanted to correct something from the fabulous Daily Unleashed Prosperity.
Okay, what did we get wrong?
Herbert Hoover signed the tax hike.
That's what we said.
No. You blame
I think Laffer knows
FDR.
because you asked me that. I mean, you wrote me a note.
I
saying
wrote
that.
you a note.
But didn't Roosevelt also raise the rates?
Yes.
Or
Yes, he did.
Yes,
But
he
that
did.
was much later.
Oh, I see.
37.
Okay.
That's correct.
So Hoover
was probably close with Nixon, the worst economic president. But Hoover took,
He was worse than
Hoover took the tax rate from 25 to 63.
And who took the tax rate on earned income from 70 to 50?
So hold on, wait, time out. Let me ask. So wait, we had
No, Nixon. from 70 to 50 on earned income.
Okay. No, I want to go
but
back
raise
to
the capital
this
gains
issue.
levy.
So hold on, you guys.
But anyway,
bad, but now it's bad overall.
Larry is right. It
So
went
we
from
have this-
25 to 63, and even worse, excise taxes went up as well.
Hoover did that?
Yes.
Hoover did that. They even had a stamp tax on checks.
Now, did
When
this
you
happen-
wrote a check, you had to
Steve,
pay a
Did this
tax.
happen after the stock market?
No.
Yes.
Actually, stocks fell first, but everybody, it was like Smoot Hawley. Everybody
Right.
knew it was coming.
Yeah.
He wanted to balance the budget.
See, that's why we
So he
didn't.
raised taxes.
So hang on.
That's
It's
it.
a
Yes,
great
exactly.
story.
He
the
raised
stupidest thing I've ever heard.
He wanted to balance the budget by raising taxes from 25 to 63, and then FDR ran in the presidential campaign as the guy who was going to balance the budget.
So
And then he did a wealth tax, so that's the different thing.
FDR ran to the right of Hoover on
the budget.
budget policy.
That's
But
amazing.
then he put in a wealth tax.
So we only have a couple minutes left. I want to ask you all this important question. The most important thing that Donald Trump do right now to get, I'm a little worried because we're going to get negative GDP in the first quarter probably. Maybe not? Okay. I hope you're right.
The January front running of the trade thing may be very overrated and may be reversed.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
But I hope you're right, and you may well be right. But I just don't want to see Republicans start with the two first quarters being negative, because that would be, officially a recession. How do we avoid that from happening? Let's start with Steve, and then, get all of your views on that.
Get that big fat tax cut bill through.
The big beautiful tax cut.
And get that through,
Right.
and continue with the deregulation,
Right.
continue with the budget cutting, and also prepare the ground that the Federal Reserve is going to have a different model in the future, where the dollar is going to matter more than the
think Trump would
GDP
do
number.
that?
At Capella University, you can learn at your own pace with our FlexPath learning format. Take 1 or 2 courses at a time and complete as many as you can in a 12-week billing session. With FlexPath, you can even finish the bachelor's degree you started in 22 months for $20,000. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu. Fastest 25% of students. Cost varies by pace, transfer credits, and other factors. Fees apply.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Larry, you worked for Donald Trump, do you think? Would he agree with what Steve Forbes just said?
Trump wants the dollar to be the world's reserve currency.
But that's critical.
He is emphatic on that.
Right.
And that is very important.
Yes.
It doesn't satisfy what Steve is asking for.
Right.
And what Steve is asking for, I have enormous favorable sympathies with.
Oh, here we go.
But
The storm cellar.
but it's a good start as the world's reserve currency. It's a good start. Look, I agree with Steve. Look, pass the program. Pass the program. It's not going to have much. It has no impact on the first quarter whatsoever. Probably not the second quarter that ends in June either. But it will have a major impact on the second half of the year.
But let me do.
Okay.
If you made it king dollar, I can't remember where I used to hear that phrase, but if you made king dollar there, if you did that, you make the dollar as good as gold. Copyrighted there.
That's Larry Kudlow, who copyrighted the term king dollar. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's what I think is there. That's the monetary policy that you'd like to have.
Right.
Yeah.
And
by the way, we should start explaining, even though most won't understand it, is that the GDP number, if you have a trade deficit, i.e. people are buying in anticipation maybe of tariffs or want to build up inventories, that counts against growth.
And so does it cut
which is nuts. If you can buy something, why is that against
and the other thing that counts
measuring the
against
economy?
Growth is the cuts in government spending, which is something we want.
Yes.
Donald Trump, I think, wants to go down in president. You know this. You know him better than any of us. I believe he wants to go down in history as one of the greatest presidents. Yes. So what does he need to do? Very quickly, 30 seconds for each of you.
Right.
What does he have to do to go down, even greater than potentially Ronald Reagan?
Well, I think he already is. A first term, he's better than Reagan.
Wow.
I think Trump was the best first-term president in economics, and they're just economics that I've ever seen. And I could list them all for you. But I think the really big hit of this administration will be bringing competitive pricing back to healthcare.
Oh,
I think
that's a good one.
Huge.
Steve Forbes just wrote a comment. Okay, Larry? Can he be one of the greatest presidents?
Yes, he can. He's running a revolution right now.
Right.
It's a populist revolution aimed at the middle-class working folks of all colors and all political stripes, including young people. It's quite remarkable.
Yeah. Oh, the young people. He's doing great with young people.
Doing great with young people, absolutely.
Why do you think that is?
I think they love a strong leader.
Right.
It's the same reason Reagan polled so well with young people.
Is that true? Was Reagan popular with young people?
They like a strong, tough leader.
Yes.
We've had all this wimpy stuff.
Right.
In recent years.
Reagan was really popular with the women, too. But that's not working.
Well, so is Donald Trump.
No. Well, I don't want to go into it. Here's the thing. Answer your question.
Yeah.
First of all, get the program through. Okay.
That's
get
the tax program.
Yeah. Taxes, deregulation, energy, and so forth. But the second point is, we didn't know this was going to happen, but he must figure out a way to defeat these left-wing activist judges who are now leading the, quote, revolution to stop him at every...
Right.
And these judges, this idea of a nationwide injunction from some judge in some district is crazy. It's absolutely crazy, and it's unconstitutional.
So they're making law from the bench, and they're just trying.
But can't we fast track it to the Supreme Court?
In this case, they're thwarting law. And they're doing
what?
Thwarting law.
Flaunting, I guess.
They are taking the executive power away from the executive. Right. And that is unconstitutional. I don't know if you saw Newt Gingrich talking about it on my show after you fellas were on. This is becoming a big problem, and it's a problem that can be solved at the Supreme Court level. Let us hope it is solved very soon.
Steve Forbes, what does President Trump have to do to go down as a great president?
Well, do the things we've been talking about economically.
Yes.
And make sure Iran doesn't get the bomb.
Yes.
And don't trust Putin.
That's a good one.
At BP, we've reset our strategy with a focused downstream, a growing upstream, and disciplined investment in the transition. See how we'll grow shareholder value at bp.com/reset.